The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Step outside of your comfort zone. See the world with a whole new perspective. Join us and experience the unexplained on the Paranormal View.
And welcome everybody right here to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight, those in the chat room and those listening from around the world. And if you have questions tonight, which I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of questions tonight, you can private chat them to either H. Foister or Ceiling Cat, and we will get those answered for you as soon as possible. And if you're listening from somewhere else other than here in the chat room and you have questions, you can send it to theparanormalview@gmail.com, and we will get those answered also. Tonight, we've got a great guest lined up, and we have with us Barbara Duncan.
Hello, everybody.
And we have Jeffrey Gould.
Hello, hello.
And I am going to really try and promise that we're not going to have a mishap this week like we had last week. I have everything reconfigured where nothing will be in my way if I have to get up.
And you can't even blame me. I was disconnected at that point during that. I came back. I'm like, what has hit the fan here?
Tim, table tipping.
So, I guess, Barbara, because we do have a great guest, do you have her bio?
No, but I know Jeff does.
Jeff, you got her bio?
Really do.
All right. Would you like to introduce our guest then?
Absolutely. I don't know where that came from. So anyway, let's get up here. So tonight's returning guest is psychic medium Gypsy Moon. In her young childhood over various domiciles, she's experienced astral projection, came into contact with a solid apparition. She's lived on a Wisconsin on a haunted farm with very many different friendly good spirits with whom she enjoyed interacting. Gypsy found herself giving readings in everyday conversations, providing spiritual understanding and advice. As a spirit medium and paranormal investigator, Gypsy Moon participates in paranormal events nationwide as a guest speaker, and paranormal investigator. She does private readings and welcomes every opportunity with which to communicate with the spirit realm with the intent of bringing hope, peace, and understanding to all interested. So welcome back, Gypsy Moon.
Thank you so much.
Now, as Jeff was also reading your bio, which a lot of it I have written down to start with, and you started out at an early age. You had an experience at the age of 2. You experienced astral projection. How did that happen, or what happened with it? Did you realize what was going on?
At the time, no, of course. I mean, I was only 2 years old. And my mother was actually in an apartment, cleaning it, getting it ready for us to move into. So she had left me with my great-grandmother for the evening, and Grandma was babysitting. She had tucked me into bed, and I was missing and wanting my mother. So I just went to her wherever she was. It wasn't like I had any idea other than I was looking for her soul or her spirit, wanting to be close to her. And my mother, who was also a psychic, it ultimately ended up being a shared experience, because as she was sitting there on the floor, scrubbing the floor, she looked up to watch me walk through the door and into her arms. Later in life, when I got a little bit older and could communicate better, I discussed the experience with her, and I remembered everything about the apartment, the floor plan, and, things about the inside, the interior of it. And she was kind of mystified by that, because she had thought that it was her experience, not one that we necessarily shared together on a conscious level, because she understood that there was no way possible for me to have remembered even living there at 2 years old. And we'd only lived there a short time, like 6 months or something, So I think that's kind of, was one of the most profound experiences at that early of an age. The grandmother that she had left me with was a nurse who used to do hospice in her home. So there was a lot of paranormal activity in the house itself growing up. So that kind of led to more experiences later on down the road. But the astral projection to my mother was the first of memory that I can recall.
So when you did that, how long, like, were you there and just hugged her and then you was back home?
Yeah.
Just like that?
Yeah, it was brief. Just needed a hug, before I went to bed.
Have you done astral projection before? I mean, since, rather?
Oh, since, yes, absolutely. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Really?
I've actually, and I can't say that it's, it works exactly the way I want it to every time, because it's really kind of done on more of a subliminal way, but there are ways that I have been able to control it, and I have been able to astral project to people and have them have shared experiences with me, which to me is, incredible. I really like doing that. There was a time where I was afraid to astral project because I was young and probably in like my teen years. I was afraid that if I left my body, maybe something else would slip in, and then when I came back, I wouldn't be able to get in, But my mom explained to me that, it doesn't really work that way, and that it's, a safe passage, and there's ways to protect yourself. So with her encouragement, I learned to, really enjoy the adventure and the experience of it.
Well, later on, you moved to a farmhouse. And and at the age of 5, you seen your first solid apparition.
Yeah.
What took place with that?
Well, at the age of...
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it was before we moved to the farmhouse in Wisconsin. We were living out in Colorado Springs, actually. And that was a shared experience as well. There was me and 2 other children were playing in an open field that laid between our houses. And we found a little sandy area by this big boulder, and we were digging in the sand, like how kids bend over and they dig and you kick up the sand between your legs behind you.
Mm-hmm.
And we were digging for gold. That's what we were saying. Let's find the gold. The gold is here. Let's dig for gold. We were all excited. And while we were digging, an arrow shot into the sand in the middle of us. And it startled us. So we looked up, and we saw 2 Native Americans. One was in full headdress, and the other was a scout. And they were just staring at us. Well, two of my friends, they ran home screaming. They were terrified and went home and told their parents. Well, I was a little bit more mischief than that. I was upset that they ruined my good time. So I went looking for them. And I'm like, because I thought they were like being bullies trying to scare us away. But when I turned around to look back at them, they were gone. And they were actually solid apparitions. And at that time, I didn't recognize them as being a ghost. Okay? The ghosts that I had seen up until that point in my life were more translucent. You could see through them. They weren't solid like you and me. And these natives were solid like you and I. So at that point in time, I went home and I followed the creek bed home, thinking I'd find their footprints or something, but they were gone. And the field was wide open. You could see all the way across it in any direction. So there was really nowhere for them to hide. And when I got home, my mom was on the phone with my friend's parents, listening to the story for the second time about what happened. And so, of course, she said, sounds like you had an eventful day. What happened? So, I told her what happened. And, at that point in time, and it might sound unusual, but I kind of had an unusual upbringing. my mom and I sat there and discussed time travel because we're like, maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was like some kind of hiccup or interdimensional crossing, or, you know, something happened there. And we didn't really turn to the ghostly paranormal again because they were solid. Well, later, when we moved to the farmhouse in Wisconsin, and I started dealing with the solid apparitions that were there, was finally when I was like, oh, okay. So the Indians in Colorado were ghosts. You know, it was like solving the mystery with more mystery.
Now,
And everybody saw the arrow?
Everybody saw what?
The arrow?
Yeah, the arrow. Yeah, and yeah, I know. And the common question is, did you grab the arrow? And sadly, no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at 5 years old, I just didn't think to grab it. You know, it was a sharp object that scared my friends away. I was more interested in the bullies that were shooting it. You know, but no, I sure wish I would have grabbed that arrow if it was even truly there. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, but it was when we were there.
Okay.
So it was a very interesting experience, which actually led to more interesting paranormal experiences in Colorado, dealing with Native Americans. So, you know, it's I kind of view it as protection, truthfully. I mean, when they've come through for me, it's always been in a protective form.
Okay.
well, now, is your mom...
You had more Native American experiences there?
In Colorado, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We captured probably the longest EVP. I think it's even on my Facebook if you want to check it out. The longest EVP I've ever recorded. We were in a cemetery that I had some problems in previously with a spirit there that decided to go ahead and jump me. And when I went back the next day, we were recording, and in the wind, as the wind gets louder, you can hear the chanting get louder. And then as the wind dies down, the chanting dies down. So it's really it's really quite beautiful. But you can hear the chanting of the Native Americans. And I felt totally protected within that. I think that it came on the wind. And we actually went as far as to investigate that, too. A good friend of mine who lives out there and does a lot of investigating with me, Dennis Batchelor, he went all over that town just to make sure that there were no ceremonies going on or in the surrounding towns, you know, because, I mean, sound carries. So he wanted to just, you know, make sure that something wasn't going on that we were misinterpreting, because in the recording, you can there's no mistake what it is. You can hear it.
That's amazing.
It is.
So is your mom also spiritual?
Oh, extremely. Yeah.
How about her mom?
Yeah, she actually, my grandmother was very much into the Ouija board. And as a result of that, my mom had a lot of strange and bizarre experiences herself growing up. And as a result of that, we weren't allowed. You know, she completely forbid the Ouija board in our house. And she just kind of, you know, made us use our God-given talents and work with, you know, the tools that you have, because you're not using any other tools here. So yeah, they were kind of outlawed. And you know, I mean, I grew up respecting that. I'm like, that's fine if you're not comfortable. I mean, I didn't seem to need a Ouija board to talk to the spirits that were there. So, you know, to me, it was not really a big deal.